career development webinar. I'm obviously going to be speaking on the subject, but also, as John said, really welcome your interaction and questions. It's a great topic and a great field to be in. I'm sure some of you are professional caregivers now, and some of you are people who are getting into the field for the first time. And I'm very excited to be able to talk about this with you. I have been in the senior care field for over 10 years now. I got into it because I had a grandmother who was abused in a nursing home and left on a floor. We had her move back home after that happened, and my mom took care of her 24/7, and I watched as she slowly burned out from the process. So I started a company that would help families navigate this, and what I realized was the best asset of any of these companies are the caregivers. And not only that, realized how unappreciated I think they are, and underpaid at times, and we have to love on and bless our caregivers. So first of all, I thank you all for what you do. I know many of you probably work with CareFamily. We thank you for that. We're seeing great success as we continue to grow. But do great work, and my hope is, whether it's with CareFamily or outside of this in other career opportunities, that you grow, you strive, and you're blessed in all you're doing for other people. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and then I will stop down for questions that you can either put on the chat or, again, we'll unmute the line and go through it. So let's go ahead and get started. Home health care and other areas of care, I'm for a second going to talk about home health care. There are nearly 1.9 million people in the U.S. who work in the home health care field. Pretty amazing. That's a lot of people. However, the growth rate of need is going through the roof. And there was an article recently in the Wall Street Journal that talked about how they feel like there's going to be about a shortage of about 700,000 healthcare and home care workers over the next 5 years. So for those of us in this field and those of us who are trying to promote ourselves in this field, what a great opportunity to pursue our careers and also help others. And I know a lot of you are in this space because you feel like you could really make a difference. And that's my goal too. So we're in the right place. Now, further training makes you more competitive and it makes you better at what you do. I would say two parts that I see every day, and many of you see it too. The more training you get, the more level of certification you get, the more job opportunities you have, and the more pay you get. And we're trying to help with that in the body of home care. But even beyond that, in the LPN and RN fields, as people progress up, those who choose, great growth opportunities there. And in addition, you'll hear us talk about general training opportunities just to hone your skill, to get better every month at what you do. And also, if you have like a CNA license, to keep your license active. So we're going to talk about ways of improving on a regular monthly basis how you train. Seniors require more intensive care as they age and as skills change. I think you'll know, a lot of you who do this regularly, boy, you get into a case and you start out with someone that you're driving around, looking for and helping them with support, but all of a sudden they're not able to bathe to a level they need to safely. So all of a sudden there's help getting in and out of the shower. Next thing you know, they're needing a bath. Next thing you know, they're needing transferring assistance. Obviously, as the needs progress, you want to be able to progress with them. Those of you who are on the line who are companions only, you want to get into a personal care attendant training or a certified nursing assistant training that allow you in many states, which require specific training for personal care, for you to upgrade so you could stay with that client. One of the things we love at CareFamily and really anywhere you're going to work is that continuity of care, that ability to remain with that client. We have some families I've worked with for 7 years where we've had a client who started just making meals for somebody and is now living in with them, helping them 24/7, and they have a wonderful relationship. So depending on your state, I will tell you, you may have various requirements. Offline, we may be able to help you with that, but keep in mind that when you start doing personal care, like bathing, dressing, transferring, toileting, the things that are basic ADLs, you may have a specific requirement in order to provide that care. Let's talk about the categories of caregiving levels. Some of you are companion homemakers. Okay, that means you're mostly doing social, domestic, custodial, non-medical support. Okay, nice job actually. It's kind of domestic, it's cooking, it's cleaning, it's companionship, it's being a friend, and helping them with things around the house. They don't need the personal care yet. When we're talking about training today and upgrading your ability to make more money and get more jobs, this is a clear line in the sand I want you to pay attention to. Because once that line is crossed with a family, licensing and training is extremely important. Yes, you can get someone in and out of the bath, but boy, safe lifting, safe transferring, ways of doing it in a way that doesn't hurt you or hurt them is really important. We're going to talk about ways of getting this license today, and we're going to talk about training opportunities. But I want to make sure that that's a real line people understand. The next area after being just a companion homemaker, well, I don't mean just a, but before any real licensing, are what we're going to call certified. This is the level many of you on the phone may be already, but also a level some are striving for. So what is that? All states have different names for them, but more the common ones are certified nursing assistant would be one. A personal care attendant would be one. A home health aide would be one. These are people who have gone usually to a training school of some sort. I've seen these range anything from 40 hours to about 180 hours. Excuse me. And what they allow you to do in most states or on the CareFamily site is make a little more money, but also be able to handle basic ADLs, activities of daily living, the bathing, the transferring, the dressing, things like that. It does usually cost some money, but these courses cost anywhere between about $75 up to about $400. If you're a companion or homemaker that is wanting to take a certification class, you should look in your area under nurses aid training, personal care training. This is not LPN level. This is right in between. And you'll see these classes offered. Some places may even offer for you to take training in order to take a job. That's usually nursing homes and assisted living facilities. CareFamily, which I'll talk about in a little bit, on its e-learning area, does have a 32-hour caregiver training course that you do get a certificate on. However, I need to say that is not honored in all states, so you want to make sure you're in a state that if you do go to a place or things like that to get a job, you show them that. In certain states it's fine, in other states it may not be. But it's still great training at a very affordable level. Okay, let's move to kind of the next area, which is somewhat similar, which is the nurses' aides, the certified nurses' aides. These are people usually who have taken a course and also taken a class where they've gone for a state board. The certified area, the nurses' aid area, kind of the same bucket, same responsibilities, but also in many of these you've taken a state certification class that allows you to provide these care. So I want to look at that as kind of the second bucket, certified nurses and nurses' aides. I want to just do a little offshoot here and mention for those of you who are jumped right to LPN school or RN school and take clinicals, you already qualify to do personal care. Again, every state's different, but people can hire LPNs or RNs who've taken some clinicals as if they were certified nursing assistants. So that's something important to remember. But the LPN and RN level is something I want to talk about tonight. That is an area where all of a sudden you're maybe going from, you know, making anywhere between $9 and $13 an hour as an aide. A little more depending, especially with CareFamily, some of the level of cases there. But an LPN and RN, especially if you go to a hospital or a facility, you know, are making anywhere between $35,000 and, quite frankly, $120,000, $130,000 a year. So there are a lot of classes and courses and schools that offer LPN and RN training. The key is, too, that financial aid is readily available for these type of courses. So those of you, and I'm going to actually give you some websites, those of you who are interested in taking those kind of courses, and getting online in your area and looking at LPN and RN classes, you can often get financial aid to take these. And depending on the school, you can do this in the body of a pretty quick amount of time and get a great job. So just to recap, there's one level which is companion homemaker, the non-personal care. The certified nursing assistant is the second one, which I would put with nurses aides, and the LPN and RN would be the last one. CareFamily.com, which many of you use. Families are hiring you specifically themselves, so they're not under the normal regulatory or licensing areas, but these families want people who are trained for certain things, and the pay actually increases based on people's training and the level of care. Okay, I'm going to take questions in a minute. I'm just going to go through this page. Categories of caregiving jobs. Many of you have experienced this already, but for those of you new in the field or those of you thinking of upgrading to a certified level or a nurse's aide level, where do I go for work? Well, I'd start with home care agencies. These are traditional companies that interview and hire you directly and put you in people's homes. Advantages of agencies are they are hiring you directly. They usually have work availability. The downside is the pay is usually a little bit lower. The average home care worker in America who's doing direct home care is making about $9.50 to maybe $10 an hour. In some areas, the Northeast, the Northwest, a little higher. In some places in the South, it could be lower. But if you want a job with a home care agency, you can go online and look up home care agencies, and you'll see a list in your area, and you can always reach out to them for work. CareFamily acts almost like a virtual home care agency. It's a place where we match you with families who are looking for work or looking for caregivers. The pay is usually more, but you get the best of both worlds from the standpoint that your taxes are taken out. You get bonding protection. You get liability insurance, so if something happened, you're really covered, which is good. But an agency does that, and they're local, and that's another place to get jobs. So those would be, companions, CNAs, nurses aides, the things we talked about are often handling home care. If you're an LPN, you can apply as well, or an RN. But the main care jobs are those other levels. Assisted living in nursing homes. Often a little more pay, often needing a certificate to get in because they don't hire companions. But they pay a little bit more on average than a normal home care agency. The difference is you probably have a ratio of patients of 1 to 10 to 1 to 15, meaning you're kind of managing multiple patients as opposed to one-on-one care. It can be a good opportunity, usually maybe more steady hours. You can get 40-hour shifts, but again, a lot of times not as much enjoyable, but it can be a good job. So if you're looking for that kind of work and you are certified or licensed in some respect, or you get certified or licensed, again, go online, search out nursing homes locally, assisted living facilities locally, and they can often help you out. Private duty care is an area where oftentimes caregivers, both companions, certified people, and LPNs and RNs do, and it's working directly with a family. It can be an excellent job from the standpoint, like I talked about, where it's usually more pay than a traditional agency. If you do it just privately with a family, beware that you're not being tax compliant. There is no insurance in case something happens. The family has no bond protection, or you don't either. If a senior accuses you of stealing something, you don't get backup support or training. So private duty can often be problematic, but private duty is basically why CareFamily was created, to give you private duty jobs with the protection, guidance of an agency-like experience, and hopefully making the fees like a private duty agency would. The last thing I want to hit before I take some questions, if there are any, is live-in care. And I want to explain this in depth because it can be a very good job for many of you. And we're doing more and more of it at CareFamily. A live-in case is not something where you have to move in, bring all your stuff, and sell your house and be with a senior the rest of your life. It's a job. I almost equate it to being like a pilot, where you may be gone for 4 or 5 days and then home for 3 days kind of thing. Usually 2 people handle a living case, and you go to the home and you stay there for a number of days. The right type of live-in case is one where you have your own room and bathroom. You may stay anywhere between 3 and 5 days, or 1 week on, 1 week off. You get your own room, your own bathroom, and some privacy. The right type of live-in case, and the way we try to manage them is 8 hours of work, just like you would as a normal aide. You may be cooking, you may be cleaning, you may be bathing, you may be dressing, you may be doing errands and some domestic work. 8 hours of rest, where you're going to be there in case something comes up, but you may be reading a book or watching TV. And then 8 hours of sleep. The senior may get up once during the night, but you're able to have sustained sleep. In those environments, you can have a really good job. And the pay levels are actually about $120 to $140, $150 a day, in that range. So you do the math on that, and it can be an excellent way of making money, walling off some time when you're working, and walling off some time when you're off. You know, I have 5 kids that are under 13 years old. I often fantasize about taking a good live-in job once in a while, because it's probably a nice way of walling off a little bit of your work, and then when you're home, you're really home. But I have found that it's a great economical way for caregivers to make a good, really solid living, but also the family to get 24-hour support at levels well below normal prices and commensurate with kind of an assisted living level. So a great way to go. So I'm going to stop here and pause. And John, why don't you explain a little bit if people have questions they want to ask. We'll go to that before I move on to the next section.
Sure. So at this time, if anyone has questions, I saw a couple questions here in chat, and I see one here in Q&A. So there's a couple different options here. You can leave your question in chat. You can leave your question in Q&A, or at a time later on in the call, we'll actually open up the lines. We'll unmute them, and you can ask your question then. For now, let's go ahead and ask or answer these questions that were left.
Okay. So the first question from Jill is, how about medical assistants? Where do they fit into the nurse's aide? That is a fantastic question. Okay, for those of you who don't know, a medical assistant is somebody who has gone to, usually, I mean, every state may be a little different, but someone who has gone to a school to get training in a certain skill set. There are some clinical training portions, but it's also, from my understanding, some business and kind of administrative functions of if you worked in a doctor's office. The good part about medical assistants is when you get a job as a medical assistant, it can be a good job. The hard part is, from my experience, they're hard jobs to get. Doctors' offices aren't always hiring and things like that. So medical assistants often get into caregiving, okay? So let me try to give you some very quick answers on this. Number one, medical assistance degrees, at least in the state of Virginia, and I know in some other states, do not transfer into a nurse's aide, a certified nursing assistant role. So again, I'm going to use Virginia example. You can't take your medical assistant, go into a agency and say, hey, I want to be hired as a caregiver. They're going to say, well, I have to treat you like a companion because you don't have the right licensing. So you would probably have to, go to the right school or things like that. Now, with CareFamily, it's a little bit different because the family is hiring you directly. I've met a lot of medical assistants who are awesome, and a lot of them have done caregiving. And so if the family looks and sees you're a medical assistant and they feel comfortable with your training and your references and your background check and want to hire you, they can. And it's actually a very credible thing, I think, that people like. But from a normal agency regulatory standpoint of caregiving and doing ADLs or other types of care, in most states it doesn't apply. Okay, the next question is, does this training apply to the state of Virginia? This is by Peggy. And I believe what you're probably saying may be twofold. And so let me answer a little bit about the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia, if you work for an agency providing personal care, they're going to want a certified nursing license, a home health aide certificate, or a personal care attendant license. And I think you also meant something else, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But a personal care attendant is probably the easiest and least expensive way of getting certified. I own an agency in Virginia called Senior Corp. And we actually started a personal care attendant school. It's 40 hours, and it is a certificate based on home care. You can't do facility care, but you can do home care. If you search for those types of classes, we do ours for a very low amount because I just want good employees, but I've seen them anywhere between $50 and $400. CNA classes are usually in the $300 level, and they're about 180 hours. Now, our classes online work for continuing education like in-services, which is a monthly requirement most states have. The 32-hour caregiver training course on CareFamily.com, you could work, obviously, in the body of CareFamily for a private family, but it is not one that the Commonwealth of Virginia would recognize as a certified nursing assistant training course. The next one is from Wayne. What is private duty care again? I was interrupted while you were covering that topic. Okay. Private duty care is a bit of an umbrella term that means you're working, it could be for a company that is handling custodial, non-skilled care for a family, meaning you're going to the home usually, the family is paying privately, even to an agency paying privately, and you're working in their home giving both ADL, activities daily living, bathing, dressing support, and some domestic support. It doesn't mean you're working privately for a family, but private duty is that sector really that Medicare doesn't cover. And that's why people have to pay out of pocket. It's called the private duty field. CareFamily.com is a private duty option that families can utilize. Home Instead or Visiting Angels is a private duty home care agency. They're a franchise that is not Medicare insurance based. That's called private duty. And then, so I hope that answers your question. Okay. So I'm gonna try to answer another one here. How about medical assistance? I'm trying to get my CMA through AAMA, but I'm also curious about how medical assistants play into this type of work. Kind of answered this before, so I'll try to answer. I'm not sure what the AAMA is. I'm sure it's the American Association of Medical Assistants, if I had to guess. Again, medical assistance in most states is not a certificate for you to go provide personal care services like bathing, dressing, other things to a family. But it does allow you some credibility if families are hiring you directly. Most people take medical assistance courses, are trying to get jobs in doctor's offices, but again, a lot end up working and moving into the care field of direct care. I will say this, if you're doing that, I have to believe having a certificate in that type of arena helps you if you move on to LPN and RN training. So is that it for questions? Okay. So we'll unmute the line at a later time probably. So, but thank you for those questions. Excuse me one second. I'm just having a glass of drink of water. Okay. I'm going to just take a minute on this, but I want to talk about the topics that training includes. We talked about certificates. I want to talk about training because I'm going to give you some real good tips coming up about how you can get training, even pre-training, and then I'm going to talk about areas you can go look for continuing education opportunities. Okay, so training areas include ethical and legal behavior is actually an interesting part. You think they're going to teach me how to do care. There's a lot of ethical boundaries and legal boundaries you got to watch. It could include HIPAA and how information of your person is shared. Or even ethical. You know, when is it appropriate to go to the bank for somebody or to read their mail or to help them with family dynamics? So that is training that I know we do and others do. Infection control and personal hygiene are really important. Nutrition and how to care for a senior, very interesting. One of the biggest complaints I know we get when complaints happen is my caregiver really doesn't know how to cook very well, just to be straight up. And then the second part is basic nutrition for people who may have blood sugar issues, diabetic issues. I'm very sorry for the technical issues we're having. Hopefully we can get everything done and move forward. I'm I'm going to get to some of the things that I think will be very important to all of you. We talked about the senior being able to stay at home, how they feel about their training, but great online training programs exist, and we want to make those available to you. I want to talk a little bit about advancing your training first. Financial aid, like I said, is often available, and I know well how some of these schools operate, and you want to make sure you get in the right program that has good kind of job entry assistance. But the LPN, MedTech, RN, and medical assistant side, again, you got to make sure it's what you want to do, and the job opportunities come out of it. But many of them have very good financial aid options. CNA training schools usually don't. CNA training schools, which is that certified level right under an LPN or an RN, they are ones where you're going to pay normally privately, or they will pay it but want you to work for them for at least 6 months. I'm mentioning very quickly 4 regionalized yet national footprint schools that offer this type of training that may be in your area. Medical Career Institute, Fortis College, TIMA Medical, and Everest. Again, by getting online in your area and looking at medical training schools, a lot will come up. If these come up, these are all schools that may be applicable to you. So here are some resources that I'll hold this page for a minute to talk about scholarships and financial aid for medical training and nursing training. Again, you can find this when you go back to the webinar, and you can have these if you need to go back. Plus, if you want information on these links sent to you, if you go, and actually I'll let you email me directly and we'll send you these links out. It's tom@carefamily.com, and I'll make sure we get this page and these links and send it over. But College Prowler is a good one, the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, and scholarships.com. You know, my hope for all of you and people listening would be you get into this field, you get to know the seniors through doing companion type work, you upgrade to a certification and help people with basic ADLs, then you may say, you know what, I want to keep going. I may want to be an LPN or an RN. Money's available and jobs are available. And I think these types of sites and this type of experience can really help you build your career. Okay, let's talk about CareFamily and you taking advantages of the free resources on this site. I felt like when I created CareFamily and I wanted to really have this incredible group of caregivers that I work with, I needed to arm you with whatever I could to make you successful, both in your further career opportunities that have nothing to do with CareFamily, or what you're doing with our own clients. Plus, if you leave an agency or a facility and come on with us, I want to make sure that you're doing your monthly in-service trainings to not only keep you strong as a caregiver, but also allow you to be compliant with your state if you have a license. For those of you who are in CareFamily, or those of you who have not yet registered, which is absolutely free, this call is not meant to get any of you to do it, but I want you to help you find the courses. After registering as a caregiver, you'll come to a dashboard. In the dashboard, to the left of this toolbar here, you'll see the area right here where you can see a dashboard where it'll say e-learning. Once you come in, you'll have this page, and you can see, I'm going to go to the slide here, slide, okay, and you can move towards categories of classes. And there's about, if you look here, about 107 courses found. And done through the Institute for Professional Care Education, which means we didn't make these up. These are ones that oftentimes CEU credits are based on, and in-service training. But they're really excellent classes. You can see here on these courses, let's say I talked about Alzheimer's care. You could see advanced memory care, different types of tips, creating moments of joy, and ways of helping you as a caregiver navigate someone with Alzheimer's. We make these available for families and for caregivers. So here's what I'm trying to say in the big picture. Get as much certification and licensing as you can. it makes sense. May not be for you, and if you work for a family privately, may not be what you want, and maybe you have enough experience you feel like you care, but continue your education. I want to tell you this too. For a fixed amount of time, because it's very important for me with CareFamily to get as many qualified caregivers as I can working, I'm actually not charging for these classes. I pay every time anybody takes a class, but I'm not charging a caregiver because I want them to go in, I want them to experience it, I want to work through it. There may be a time where I charge something. I'm sure there will be. I'll need to. But right now I want people to go through the courses and really learn. You know, this last slide is basically a photo of me as a baby with 5 generations. And the woman holding me is my great-great-grandmother, who lived to be 107, who I remember actually pretty well. With her is my grandfather, my mother, and my great-grandmother. Here's my point in this slide. We all got into this field for a certain reason, and it was to help and bless others. But I think all of us know that in helping and being in the living room or the bedroom or the bathroom or the car with these seniors and helping them stay at home and stay independent and bringing peace of mind to the family is the mission a lot of us have. And I want to thank you and hopefully, you know, bless you with the ability to go out and build your career, build your certifications, move up the medical and clinical chain, and get a lot of good opportunities. So we try to give you the resources to find those certifications, as well as find monthly classes or more if you want to do it more frequently that can help you build up your training. So we suggest you look on the internet for those kind of job opportunities and training opportunities, and go to carefamily.com to find the right job and also get training. I'm going to open it up for some questions before we close. Okay. So there were some logistical questions about the trainings and also working with CareFamily. Yes, if you work and do a training in CareFamily, you will get a certificate. I need to tell you that as a new kind of university or caregiver module online, some classes have not issued certificates. However, we have a record of your course, and we can actually send you that certificate. And what's going to happen in about the next 2 weeks is they will actually be automated to email you the certificate. And I'm doing this webinar, you know, October 24th of 2013. So 2 weeks past that or so is when certificates will be available. Not only that, they will show on your profile as a caregiver on CareFamily. So you will get a certificate, and one of the reasons I want to do that is if you want to print it out and you're going for another job, you're applying to a school, I want to give you that certificate. So hopefully that answered the question. Through CareFamily, your client is considered your employer. That was something that came up with somebody, and I'll go ahead and answer it as well. In CareFamily, the reason we built this is many families want to have the advantage of picking their own caregiver, scheduling their own caregiver, and having more control over the care, plus being able to save money per hour so they can get more care for mom or dad. So people hire privately to do that. CareFamily is that kind of vehicle where you actually work for the family directly. The beauty of it is, though, we actually make sure that taxes are done for you, the Social Security and FICA is done for you, you get a W-2 at the end of the year, the things that give you peace of mind that you're doing all the right thing. However, you're also getting more than you would usually working for a traditional agency. You get the freedom to choose your families that you work for, but you actually do work for the family directly. So I think that's all the questions we have. I appreciate everybody's time tonight, and we look forward to joining again in our next webinar. And I wish you all the best. Again, call us if you have any questions, or you can send an email to tom@carefamily.com if there's any immediate information you'd like, including the list of those links. So thank you very much.